Good morning to the Palma Network and an extended community. This is Dennis Donahue, class of 72, joined by Andy Ottoni, who is class of 22. And we're together again for another special Palma podcast edition that we're going to be talking about our Lenten Mass series. One of the things we'd like to do, obviously, we're very attentive to the message of Lent, and one of the things we are excited about our Lenten Mass series is we have some terrific celebrants joining us, and so today we are joined by Father Nate Wills at the University of Notre Dame, and if you're watching this visually rather than listening, you might note everybody's in green. So this happens to be St. Patrick's Day, and there's probably no more appropriate day than Father Nate than to welcome you and thank you for joining us.
I'm delighted to be here, and yeah, it really is. It's a lot of fun. I don't hesitate to say "Go Irish" on St. Patrick's Day. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, no, hopefully, I'm only Subway Irish, unlike like Andy and his older, older brothers. But hopefully, it's Go Irish 365, 24/7. I'll admit my biases, but no, we're pleased you're going to join us. In fact, one of the things that I think people, and I think I had mentioned to you when we first talked, when we've done the Lenten Mass series, one of the priests was giving Andy's dad a hard time. Hey, like, how come you're bringing in the big guns from Notre Dame? What's wrong with the hometown talent? Which we love. We love our priest in the diocese, but I told him, I said, because we like to appreciate the universality of the church. We've even had priests in from Ireland, so I think it's terrific to hear from other voices in it. And over the years, that's one of the things people have appreciated about the Lenten Mass series. And so I want to talk a little bit about your background, but let's start with. Did you find it kind of unusual to get an invitation to come celebrate a mass, and it's on us, and please come say mass, and we'll throw in a little hospitality to boot.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised. It's not the usual email that comes across my inbox, but it's exciting. Never a dull moment in our lives, and I'm used to my job. It requires a lot of travel, so I'm kind of used to popping around. But I was really surprised and delighted to get the invitation.
Well, it's kind of fun because when Andy's dad mentioned it, and Andy, I don't, I'm sure you had something to do with this, and I'll let you comment on it. But Andy's dad said, we might be able to get the football chaplain from Notre Dame, and that almost sounds as impressive as the president of Notre Dame. If you're, I was like, do you think? And so we were excited, and we'll chat a little bit about that at the end. I think the more serious conversation, and I think it's an important one, and one we'll appreciate at Palma, is your background and your current ministry and the things you're up to. So let's start before we visit a little bit with Andy. Tell us a little bit about your background, kind of your journey to becoming a priest, and what you're doing today.
Sure. I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota. I have two siblings, an older brother and a younger sister, and we all went to Catholic schools throughout our entire lives. And just been a wonderful place. I get to go home to Minnesota. I actually work with some schools there to this day, which is really terrific. And my older brother decided to go to Notre Dame the year before me, and he kind of laid the groundwork there. And I wanted to go, anywhere but Notre Dame because I wanted to do my own thing. And then I came to visit, and I was like, "Well, this is great. I love this." And I found out that they had a college seminary program too, and I was discerning the priesthood at that time, really asking, "Where's God calling me in my life to use my gifts and to answer the needs of the church and the world as well?" And so I looked into that, and it was just a really good fit. The guys in our undergraduate seminary program were thoughtful and interesting and smart, and they were really asking a lot of the same questions that I was about where is God calling me in my life, and how can I use the gifts that I've been given to contribute and build up the wider church. So I landed here when I was a freshman as well, and into our undergraduate seminary program, and I just really stayed. I went throughout all of college, and then I We have a 1 year novitiate, kind of like a year-long retreat out in Colorado Springs, and then came back and I taught high school for 2 years, which was just a blast as a part of the Alliance for Catholic Education, and then came back and was ordained a priest. And so I've been at Notre Dame a little bit. I did grad school for a little bit. I was at a parish here in South Bend for a little bit, and now I'm here full time.
Well, I'm going to ask you about ACE, which I think is the right acronym for
Yeah.
your work. But Andy, I can't help. I kind of smiled when I heard older brother went to Notre Dame. No way I was going to go there. Wanted to do my own thing. The attorneys have lined up really nicely for kind of that same phenomena as Palma, now Notre Dame. So I I I I can't help but smiling with that comment. How are you enjoying Notre Dame? And based on what I can tell, you're doing your own thing as each of your brothers did. But how's that transition from Palma to Notre Dame being? And did you kind of have some similar thoughts before you were making your decision?
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. So, funnily enough, no. It was basically the first time I stepped on campus. I was 12, I want to say it was like 12, maybe 11, maybe 10 at the youngest. I see the dome, the Golden Dome, Notre Dame's big central building, and I'm like, that's really cool. And just, it's been a place I've always wanted to go. My brothers both loved it here, so it felt like some place I would enjoy. So I didn't really have thoughts of I don't want to go to Notre Dame. Notre Dame was always someplace I was really invested in going to. The transition from Palma to Notre Dame, it was a pretty easy transition. The most notable thing is there are girls here. That's something Palma doesn't have at the moment. As I haven't heard that Palma's gotten co-ed. It hasn't.
I keep hearing that. I must be showing my age though. We had co-ed classes my last couple of years at Palma, and it just doesn't seem that far around the block to, uh, But I, but yes, I having been on campus as well, there are girls at Notre Dame. Or Father, I guess I need to be politically correct. They're young ladies, but
They're young women. They're, yes,
young women.
exactly.
Okay, thank you. We all need a little help these days. But but Andy, I'm going to guess your teachers, if any of them pick this up and listen to it, they're going to be pleased to hear you were well prepared to go to Notre Dame.
Oh, definitely. Education wise, I was very well prepared, especially in English. That's what I'm majoring in. Palma's AP English courses. Actually, there's a class most freshmen have to take called Writing and Rhetoric. Uh, but my AP English language course at Palma, I passed the AP test, so I didn't end up having to take that. So I had an extra class slot. So Palma really did prepare me to take it. The classes here at Notre Dame. It feels like my Notre Dame education in some ways is an extension of what I learned at Palma, just through like the courses offered, through especially the Catholic element of education here. I'm taking a Foundations of Theology class currently this semester, and I feel like all of the theology courses, because Palma has a great theology courses all 6 years. Well, seven now that we have sixth grade, all seven
Right.
years. Um, I feel like I'm very well prepared for that class, especially because of my past with Palma and my past in Catholic education.
Okay. Well, before we jump back to Father Nate, so your current extracurriculars at Notre Dame, you're writing for the school newspaper, right?
Yes, yes, I've been writing for the last semester and a half. This is my midterm, so semester and a half. Funnily enough, yesterday I did an interview call with a Notre Dame alumni. So I went from being the interviewer to now I'm being on the podcast. So I think that's a fun turn of events for
Yeah.
me.
Depending upon who you talk to, being the interviewee is not necessarily as easy as being the interviewer. So, so we've turned the tables on you a little bit, Father. I, uh, I really do want to pick up because I think it's an important conversation. And before we started recording, we just alluded to it. Um, Talk about your work at ACE, and just in broad strokes, where is Catholic education from your standpoint, and uh, what are you inspired by, and and I loved what you said about wanting to serve the wider mission of the church, and thank you for underscoring the universality of it. But what are you concerned about when you think about the big picture?
Yeah, there's a lot to be concerned about just in terms of education in general. But I'm deeply hopeful in Catholic education in particular. So the Alliance for Catholic Education here at the University of Notre Dame has really been formed out of a need, and that need has been for really excellent Catholic school teachers. 30 years ago, the ACE was founded to really answer that need of a need for great Catholic school teachers here in the U.S. and beyond. Um, it's Notre Dame had a school of education, and it was shut down in like the 1970s or something like that. So in 1993, this program was started to really give recent college graduates an opportunity to learn how to be a teacher and then to send them out into the nation, into Catholic schools that were really in need. So it's grown from a teacher training program, and it's been really terrific. We have a really great track record. About 60% of our folks stay in Catholic education, 70% stay in education in general, which is really a gift to the church. And we've grown into a place that trains aspiring Catholic school principals in the Marianne Remick Leadership Program, in which I teach, and all kinds of different ways in which we serve Catholic education, from helping them to use technology meaningfully in my program to helping to recruit Latino students in our English as a New Language and our Latino enrollment program. Our program for inclusive education to try to help teachers to serve a more diverse group of students. It's just an incredible different ways of trying to serve Catholic education nationwide. And look, I mean, this Catholic schools are so critically important because for many kids, this is the way that they encounter Christ first in their lives. This is the way in which they come to know, love, and serve Jesus through the church, and to see that witness day to day, not only just in their parents and their family, but in committed teachers as well. So it really is an opportunity, and to do what Andy has done and really embrace that formation as a part of Catholic education, I think is critically important. And at a time when I think a lot of folks are opting out of religious education, I think Catholic school is even more important, just because of the ways that we have the opportunity to evangelize, and to create students that aren't just smart and good, but holy.
Well, and before we jump into Lent, you're triggered a question in my mind, because I went to public school until I went to Palma, public school and grammar school. So there were I'd go to catechism classes, and I'm not hearing as much about catechism classes because I kind of parish hop depending upon time of day and travel schedule. So I get to all the parishes, and I don't hear about catechism. Now, that maybe I'm not tuned in, but is it fair to observe that there may be less? Catholic schools have their own challenges, and I would imagine CCC does, which really underscores, boy, if you don't get Catholic education right in communities, you're really at risk in terms of faith formation and getting that pipeline going, so to speak.
I'd say it's mixed, because there's a number. I think there's a certain group of priests and pastors as well who would see Catholic education as a draw on their bottom line from a parish, which many of them are, right? They give money to the schools to keep them going. And so what many pastors in places that have excellent public schools have said is like, well, look, I'm just going to let my students go to the public schools, and then I'll have a really excellent CCD program, catechism program, that type of thing. And I think that's worked for some folks. It's by necessity in other places where students don't have access to Catholic education. But honestly, in my opinion, there's nothing like Catholic schools in terms of really just getting students to experience, day after day in everything that they do, an education centered on Christ. There's more resources out there than ever in terms of online resources and ways to connect. So there really are ways in which people can grow in their faith if they don't have access to Catholic education. But my hope is that we continue to just build access and excellence in Catholic education, because I think it's possible, and I think we're accomplishing the good that we want to do in this country and abroad, which is to educate our children, and we're doing it in a high level that's giving them a great moral compass and a centering on Christ.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about uh, the season at hand. Even though all of us have clearly expressed a fondness for St. Patrick's Day, Lent trumps St. Patrick's Day, and though we are pleased that that our bishop said we can't have. We've got a dispensation from fish today, so I know I think I've got two corned beef dinners on tap for tonight. But let's let's jump into a Lent a little bit. Talk about maybe how you prepare for it, and what you think its importance is, and in general, and what are you thinking about? You don't have to sneak. We don't. If you do the equivalent of a really good sermon in this answer, which is fine, you just can't use the same material when you come out here. So,
I know
what are you thinking about with Lent?
it's always tricky that way. No, I really do appreciate Lent. I think Lent is it's a gift of the church, really, that this season comes once a year. And I always find like, oh, thank God Lent is here, because I really need it in my life. Lent is in many ways the story of all of our lives, right? That we need to come back to God. And that's not a one and done moment. That it's a gift and an invitation of the church to say, how can we recommit? How can we grow in our faith? How can we be attentive to the things that are really part and parcel of the Christian life? Prayer, fasting, almsgiving. How can we celebrate the sacrifice of Christ on the cross in a really wonderful new way? I mean, I always think this is the gift of Scripture, right? Like we don't read the Scriptures once, like, okay, well, I know all that, and that's so, I'm done with that. Every time you encounter Scripture, it's alive and new, and it encounters you at a different place in your life. And I think Lent is similar for me. There have been times when I've really been grumpy about Lent, and I'm like, oh, this is the last thing I need in my life. And I think there's times when I have just appreciated that invitation to say, okay, how can I renew my relationship with God? How can I recommit to the things that I know are really important in my life, in growing closer to Christ, and in just reminding me of the importance of his sacrifice and the importance of my invitation to live out the gospel because of it. So I really do think Lent is a gift. I love Pope Francis's notion about God never gets tired of forgiving us. We get tired of asking for forgiveness. And I think in many ways, that's for me, the story of Lent, is that we get tired of many ways and kind of say, okay, all right, I got to commit myself to these things. And I think Lent is that invitation that says, okay, for 40 days, and Easter's longer, right? Easter's 50 days. But for 40 days, let's think about letting go of some of the things that are holding us back and embracing the things that we know are going to be helpful for us in drawing closer to Christ. So I do love Lent. I think it's great. And I grew up in Minnesota, so I'm a Vikings fan. I don't mind wearing purple. It's pretty.
Oh, there
It's
you
pretty
go.
great.
Okay. All right. Good insight. Good inside football. Andy, you were an altar server at time and two for a number of years with Lent. For the Lenten Mass series. You know, some reflections on your end, and then now that you're in Notre Dame, do you and your fellow students, does Lent register? Because I would imagine, because I've gone to church at Notre Dame as well, and I mean it's a great cathedral. It's I mean, all the stuff's there. So does Lent sink in a little bit more at Notre Dame, and think a little bit about Palma, what it meant to you as well?
Well, for one, Lent definitely does sink in, especially on Fridays, because the dining halls purposely do not serve meat. So very good, easy reminder to not eat meat on Fridays.
Okay, yeah.
Jokes aside, jokes aside, Lent at Notre Dame, or in environments like Notre Dame or like Palma, the Catholic spirit is such like an everyday part of our lives outside of Lent, during Lent. But it is something special during Lent, I feel. The mass at Notre Dame is always amazing, no matter where you are. That's what I love about Notre Dame, is every dorm has their own little chapel inside. to do Mass, and I think that's amazing. So the Catholic identity is very much a present part of Notre Dame's identity. Sorry, excuse me. Um, the grotto, you mentioned the grotto. The grotto is amazing. Uh, and during Lent, we light candles. That's something that's part of the Lenten tradition. The grotto, we can light candles year round, the year-round tradition of lighting candles. So I feel like the Lenten spirit is kind of present throughout Notre Dame at all times, but during Lent, there's very much a renewed spirit. I do a monthly potluck with some friends, and we've had to call that off for Lent because you know, people give things up for Lent. I gave up ice cream personally, so that wasn't really a complication. But a lot of my friends, they gave up sweets or special types of food. So the potluck became difficult. But we still gather. Something me and my friends do is we pray the rosary at the grotto. They have 11 p.m. rosary at the grotto. So that's what we've done instead. And that's been like a really amazing experience. That's also year round. But just Notre Dame has very much the Catholic identity is very much important part of life at Notre Dame. And I feel like Lent has given me time to kind of reflect on that because anywhere you are on campus, you can see the dome, you can hear the bells every 15 minutes from the basilica. But Lent, no matter where I am, really makes me reflect on my Catholic identity, even though it's something that's kind of, it's always been a part of me. It's something that's always around, but Lent really calls me to like think about it and reflect on it in ways I haven't year round.
Father, it's interesting listening to Andy, and because I know I and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I am your godfather. So I think Andy's pretty, pretty, I think pretty special. But you've got to be inspired to be surrounded by so many young people that think like Andy. That's really got to be rewarding for you.
No, that does my heart so good to hear, Andy. I mean, just like, I mean, that's our hope, right? Like, it really is our hope that folks will just deepen their life of faith here. And I'm so glad and so grateful that you've embraced that because it's not a given. Like, I think that even though there's so many opportunities to grow in your faith here, not everybody does that, right? Like, there's people who walk away and say, yeah, that I've I've heard that from people before. I heard a campus tour once and somebody was like, yeah, we're Catholic, but it's no big deal. And I'm like, wait, it is a big deal. Like, wait, like, stop the tour. No,
Yeah.
and I really do think I think there's tons of opportunities, like every school, like every place. I think there are really wonderful things that you can become involved in, and I think it's pretty easy at Notre Dame to find not only opportunities to grow in your faith, but also people that I think will challenge and help you grow and are just equally faith filled and want to grow in their faith. Not just Catholics. I mean, people who come from all other faiths in at Notre Dame, and we happen to be 83% Catholic or something like that. But people just come to Notre Dame because they want to grow in their faith, and they realize that's just a huge opportunity here. And I personally think if you walk away from a Notre Dame education not having grown in your faith, you missed it.
Wow. Yeah. No. Well, certainly some good words. Well, as we as we finish up, let's have a little fun and note for the record that Father Nate will be saying Mass in the Edmund Rice Chapel on March 29th. So that's the one to we'll get them all on your calendar for Wednesday. We actually did end up having Mass called on account of rain this week. So even the St. Patrick's Day luncheon got so we're excited to get back on track this week and have you out on the 29th. A little inside baseball as you visit with Father Nate when he's out here to all our listeners and attendees. So you're excited. Like I said, we throw in a little hospitality besides bringing you out here. You're excited to go to the aquarium, I hear, and
Absolutely.
and I'm told you're an aquarium guy. So I assume you haven't seen ours. So so and after that happens, you'll now know what number one is. But before that, what aquarium? What aquariums do you like? What got you interested in aquariums?
Love it. I grew up in Minnesota around lakes, right? And I have always loved water. When I was first a priest at St. Joe Parish here, about a mile from Notre Dame's campus, one of the things I ended up doing was I bought an aquarium, and I just had, like a couple little fish and stuff in it. But I would really pray by that, and I loved just the peacefulness of it. When I was in college, I got scuba certified, and I loved like the like when you're under the water, that everything, like, time slows down, and there's just something really peaceful about the water. So I really like, I don't know, I think I kind of dig aquariums and stuff, and I think the Chicago Aquarium is pretty cool. So that, I think that's probably the best I've seen. But I'm really excited to see
Well,
yours. I'm excited to just be out there to see the school. I'm on the board. I went to an all boys Catholic military high school in Minnesota, and I'm on their board. And I always love seeing other schools, and that's so generative in terms of thinking about, like, oh, they approach this idea that way, or they do this thing, and so you just like get a lot of really cool ideas. And my life is committed to Catholic education, so I always love seeing what folks are doing in really creative and interesting ways.
well, we've got a good group, and I know they'll enjoy visiting with you. Uh, well, we can't resist having noted earlier. You're also, amongst the other things you do, you're the chaplain of the Notre Dame football team. So, what does that mean? Are you the guy praying on the sidelines? Are you sending in, are you sending in plays? What are you doing when you're the chaplain?
Definitely not sending in plays. Let me guarantee
Well,
that
based
one.
on a couple of offensive series last year, somebody was not sending in plays. So,
No, they don't appreciate when I say run the Hail Mary. No, it's not. No, my role is really limited. I mean, I travel with the team. I pray with the team. We celebrate Mass the day of the game, and have masses. It's the last thing we do before, and away games is the last thing we do before we get on the bus and go to the stadium. For home games, we actually celebrate Mass here at the Basilica of the Sacred Heart, and then the student athletes and coaches will all march from the Basilica over to the stadium, and fans line the walk. It's super cool. But
well,
so,
what
yes,
I was going to say, and what's somewhat unusual about Notre Dame, may not apply across the board, but it is the football players are living in the dorms like everybody else. They're got to go to school, got to do the stuff. They're part of the Notre Dame experience, and it sounds like. And so, does do they connect with their faith? I know this will lead to the joke we had earlier. That as I told you, my theory that God actually does have a favorite football team. It is Notre Dame, and anytime they lose, it's just for the purposes of building character. To which you quoted Lou Holtz and said,
I said, Lou Holtz used to have this great line that he said, Jesus doesn't care who wins the football game, but his mother might, which I just love. It's
"Yeah,
really
no,
cool.
that's terrific." But
You're totally right.
how does does you are the chaplain and saying mass, and do you get the impression that kind of matters to the players?
It really does. I mean, yeah, it's such a great gift to see the other side of students' lives. So I get to see this in, Andy and the folks in our dorm, to encounter their faith when they come to dorm mass. And it's really an incredible just privilege to see our student athletes as people who are really deeply intense about working out. They're intense about their life. They're intense about everything, and they're intense about their faith as well. That you really do see there's a deep desire for self-improvement, and I think that translates into a lot of guys' faith being really important to them. And it's not about half our team is Catholic, and so but I do really think that people come to Notre Dame because they want to grow in their faith. And it's important not just to our student athletes, it's important to our coaches and our staff as well. Coach Freeman just came into the Catholic Church this past year. It was a total cool experience and joy to walk with them in that process. And it's just amazing to see the faith that they have, the importance of this, the last thing that we do before we leave the locker room at Notre Dame Stadium is, the coach gets them all fired up and gives them the game plan, and then we all kneel, hold hands, and pray. And my role is just saying Our Father, and they go, oh no, 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 no. But it's the fastest Our Father you've ever heard. But they put it on the jumbotron. I mean, they put it on the big screen there. So somebody sent me a video this past year of people in the stands praying along with the Our Father. It just blew me away. It's such a cool invitation to think about sanctifying like every part of our lives, not just the part in mass, but really inviting God into every moment of our lives, even sports events, right? To think that there's no place on our lives and our campus that isn't just permeated with God's grace and ready to be an opportunity to see His face. I mean, this is people joke that Notre Dame is Catholic Disney World, and I think it's a great place, or wherever you are, it's a great reminder of our.
Well, I have heard Andy's dad use that phrase, so so it certainly has made it all the way out to California. Andy, and I'm always struck, less so. I've chatted more with your brothers in the years about this, but I'm struck by how, just kind of picking up what Father said. I mean, the students feel connected to the whole football thing, and I mean, it just sounds like the whole campus is very interconnected, regardless of what you're doing, and supporting each other. We'll let you close with that, and then I'll get back with Father Nate, and we'll get everyone ready for him to come see us in a few weeks.
Yes, well, not just football, but community in general is incredibly important to Notre Dame. Like you both were talking about, the student athletes live in the dorms with everyone else. It's very much a community. No matter where you are, it's all about community. No matter who you are, it's about who you know, which you can know people from like any year, any dorm. It's not, there are like really no boundaries or anything that like dictate anything like that, like social lines that are drawn or anything. It's a very welcoming and open community. And then there are communities within that communities. My older brother Jake, he was in marching band, and I know the saxophone section, which he was a part of, that was a big community for him. My community, I'm finding a great community within the Observer, the newspaper I work for. And I found my own community of friends, and I have friends from both sides of campus. The only line I'd say that gets drawn socially is which dining hall you prefer. And to anyone listening who cares, South Dining Hall is better, and it's not just because I live one building away from it. It is less than like a 2-minute walk from where I live. That's not the only reason. But football, though, especially football, is a huge deal for Notre Dame's campus. We have the shirt fundraiser. We have the shirt fundraiser every year, which the story behind that is beautiful. I encourage our listeners to look into that story because I don't know the full story. I couldn't do it justice, but it's a great yearly tradition. And as to what Father Nate was saying, there is one great reminder in the football stadium of our Catholic identity and like our shared community. It's the Hesburgh Library with the mural of Jesus looking over it, which has been affectionately titled Touchdown Jesus, which I love the Hesburgh Library. It's one of my favorite places to go on campus. It's a great study spot. But that overlooks the stadium, and I think that is truly beautiful. It's a truly beautiful piece of architecture, piece of art. And one last thing I want to say, as Father Nate was describing the pre-game tradition, I've seen that many times at the Notre Dame Stadium. But when I hear that, I also think of the movie Rudy, another big part of the Notre Dame community, which is about a Notre Dame student athlete. So that's a big thing for community too. I just want to say that too. Every year at the beginning of the year, they have what they call Flick on the Field, where they put on the Jumbotron the movie Rudy. And that's always an awesome experience. So community is just really big for Notre Dame.
Well, Father, I'll go back to something we said earlier when kind of one of our local priests say, how come you're bringing in the big guns? And the idea we want to really kind of show off or remind us all of the universality of the church. And Notre Dame is obviously a place that touches really the entire globe. So I know we're going to be very excited to have you out here, and we're really grateful that you're coming. So, any you know, this may put you on the spot a little bit, but you're the fifth Lenten Mass, so we're getting into the stretch drive. Where you'll even may have to answer that very difficult question: is it too late for me to try this Lent? So you may have some tough theological calls when you're out here.
That's really great. Well, you can assure that priest in your diocese that Jesus himself said a prophet is not without honor except in his own hometown. And so I experience that a lot when I go home and my family wants me to have mass at Christmas, and my cousins are sitting there like, looking at me. So you can tell that priest, he can come out to Minnesota and celebrate
And
mass with
he's a
my
good one.
family.
They'd love him in Minnesota. But you know that old adage of you must be an expert because you're from over 100 miles away. So that's
Exactly.
yeah, the old business consulting adage. They got to know they live far away. So well, listen, Father and Andy, we appreciate both of your times. Difficult to distract somebody from spring break, and Father, know you're busy, and you've had an interesting travel schedule. Between Florida and Minnesota. We're not sure what to tell you to prepare for out here, but we'll have an umbrella for you if you don't have one, if things keep up. So anyway, good to see both of you. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and see you at the Edmund Rice Chapel on the 29th at 7.
Sounds great. God bless you all. Go Irish.
Go Irish. Thank you, Mr. Donahue.
You're welcome. Great to see everyone, and thanks for joining us on a special Palma podcast edition.